Welcome to the Vincent podcast. On today's podcast, I want to talk about mature makeup. This is such an important topic for me because I feel my career has really relied on creating content, especially for social media, for mature women. And the reason why I think I've always been drawn towards doing mature type clients is because when I was starting in makeup school, this was probably about 20 something years ago, I used to practice on my mother. It was so interesting. I'm the youngest of five, and my mom had me at a later age. So by the time I was in makeup school, she was already well into her 60s. And I remember I went to this makeup school in Hollywood that was all about, when I went in, it was all about special effects and, you know, HD and airbrush and all of these things. And I actually, when I first started out, I thought, I'm definitely going to do special effects. This is my career calling. And the scariest thing for me was when they did, you know, those plasters, the life sculptures that they do of you. And they wrapped me up in all of it. I was so claustrophobic. I never knew I was that claustrophobic. And all of the like the gore and the blood and all these things, it just wasn't for me. I definitely knew once I had done it that wasn't what I wanted to do. And then I remember there was a module in the school that I went to that was all about beauty. And I actually really loved it. And it's interesting because before I got into makeup, I didn't have a huge background in it. I had some artistic abilities. I was, very analytical, but I found that beauty was where I really shined and it just made sense and I was passionate about it. So I had to bring in a model and I thought, let's bring my mother in. She's willing, she's available. And a lot of the other students had their sisters, their best friend, someone who, we were all in our 20s at this point. And my mother had, pretty good, she had like a full face, so she didn't have a lot of wrinkles, but, she had hooded eyes, barely their brows because in the 60s and 70s, she had tweezed them all. And a lot of the other students it was super easy to create these looks. But for me, it was difficult because I was having to compensate. It was one thing to learn how to do makeup, with a perfect face and figuring out the application methods and the rules. But for me, it was about also having to figure out how to correct as well. And the teacher I had was brilliant and she helped me out. But it really got me going because, I practiced a lot with her. And I think I really learned kind of what mature skin needs. And funny when you talk about mature, because when you if you've looked through my social media, you know that I always use a really diverse group of people, but I definitely use mature women a lot. And the reason why is because they're my friends. I'm in the mature category. It's crazy to say in my 40s, I'm in the mature category, but it really gets me thinking, what is considered mature? Because obviously, if you have someone who's viewing the content and they're maybe teenagers or in the early 20s, they'll think of someone 40 plus as being mature. But then, when we're in our 40s, we think, oh, I'm not mature, even though you probably are. And I've had to really come to terms with that. But mature can be a broad range. It could obviously be someone who is in their 40s. It could be someone 50s, 60s, 70s, onwards. So I think for me, the definition for mature are people that have applied their makeup in a certain way their whole life. And as they get older, you need to adapt and change. And I think this is one of the most difficult things because you want to apply your makeup in the way that you are used to, but it doesn't always work anymore because, gravity and texture and just colors in general that we probably wouldn't wear as you get older when you would have done when you were younger. So really adapting your makeup to your age helps. But I'm a big proponent of having this freedom of expression with makeup because I remember when I first started, I think it was when IGTV started coming out and I was doing long form content and I had some models I think were in their 50s. And one thing you learn especially when you're on social media a lot, the comments and the they could be quite harsh. And, now I kind of laugh when I go through them. I'll go through with some of them for you because mature skin and mature makeup has the most, like, you'll have really glowing responses, but you also have the most critical ones as well. And I think it's obviously because people have strong opinions on this. There's a lot of people that think that if you reach a certain age that you shouldn't wear makeup that is too heavy, that maybe you shouldn't wear certain colors, you shouldn't do your eyes a certain way. And I don't know if I believe all that. I mean, there are rules, there are things that help. That there's obviously definitely things you can do to appear younger and to de-emphasize certain parts of aging. But at the same time, if someone wants to wear a bright pink lip or, full black smoky eye and you're 60, why not? If that's makeup's supposed to be empowering, right? But it's definitely, after these comments are really interesting. Let me actually go through some of these so I have some videos that, I'll do ones that are, especially with mature skin, where I focus on, wrinkles, foundation application, concealer application, and the ones I think that get the most negativity is where I am doing something a little bit bolder. And a lot of the people I work with are my friends. They're people because they're the same age as me. So I have a lot of friends that are, 40s, 50s, 60s. I also do makeup on my mother-in-law. And, I had Dog Walker that is a good friend of mine now, and I do makeup on her. And I think people also like seeing other people that look like them, that you're not necessarily always showing techniques on models. Because I have models from agencies. If I'm working with the brand and I have a model who, they say they want a mature model, which is very difficult to find in the agencies. But when I do get them, I'll get responses like, oh, her skin was perfect already, or she looks so good. I think if people as they age, when they have these concerns, they want to look at people that have the same concerns that they have, that have the same problems with applying makeup. So it's definitely something that I try to make sure that I represent everybody and not just showing it on a model. So when I'm going through some of my posts, the ones that are so funny. So I did this one where I brought black eyeliner underneath the eye. Could you imagine? Brought that over underneath the eye on someone who was over 50. The amount of comments that I got, you've made her look so old, or, oh, her eyes just can't take that type of eyeliner, or she looks haggard. You see this, but you wouldn't see that kind of comment on someone else. But then if I were to not apply, if I did like a brown eyeliner, everyone's like, oh, perfect, love it. But mature makeup's not always about natural makeup. You can have dramatic makeup. You can line your bottom lash line. It's really about using the type of products you use, and the way that you blend it, that I think, make a difference. But these comments I have a laugh sometimes. It's funny to read them and then see how passionate people get about this topic. But as we age, you do need to change the way that you apply makeup. So, for example, if you are someone who in your 20s and 30s went for full coverage foundation, it's not going to really work as you get older, because it's going to settle in those fine lines. It's going to accentuate texture and pores. It's going to look cakey and heavy because our skin is not as supple, it's not as hydrated as you get older. And I think this is something that you then need to change. If you like more full coverage, you have to find the formulas that work for you. If you are for someone, for example, who used to wear the thick black eyeliner, maybe it's about the technique of how you're applying it. It's you have to use a different type of product. Instead of like a liquid liner, you need to use like a longer pencil. It's maybe changing the angle of your wing if you still want to wear a wing and can wear a wing. And so really finding, not necessarily having to change your makeup in a way that doesn't really represent you anymore, but it's more about finding new ways to apply it and new products to use. I think is the best advice I can give as you get older. And then, adapting to those changes. So as you find that, for example, maybe someone wore concealer all the time, and, maybe even after they got into their 30s or 40s, they changed concealer. Sometimes you then have to change it again because your skin might be dry. It might, you might have a few more crow's feet or lines, or it's settling too much. So it's really about adapting to the changes in your appearance. And it's not a negativity. It's a negative thing. It's something to celebrate. I always tell my partner when I have a birthday, I just had one in January, and you think, oh, you get depressed as you get older. And I'm just so happy to be alive. I think we should always celebrate getting older because so many people don't get the opportunity to. So going through makeup, I really wanted to talk about with mature skin, my favorite products that I like to use on people that are in this category that, maybe need something that's a little bit more hydrating, something that has maybe some more skincare benefits that are for people of that age. So when I look at primers and skincare, this is the first thing I think is so important. You've heard me talk about it on my previous episode where the products you're using on your skin matter the most. You have to prep and set up your skin so that you can then have something that you can apply a foundation or concealer on and it's going to lay beautifully. So skincare I think is, SPF is obviously important. Probably should have been using it way before you were classified as mature, but it's never too late to use sun protection because you're preventing more and more damage. I think a lot of times the questions I get asked a lot, especially in this age group, is how to cover hyperpigmentation and sun damage, like melasma. And normally you get it, on the cheeks, anywhere where the sun hits more. I had a friend who got really bad melasma on his cheeks, and it was because he was wearing sunglasses with metal, and the sun was hitting it and was hitting his skin, and it was, accentuating the sun damage. So, make sure that you're obviously using sun protection, wear a hat when you can outside. Your sunglasses should definitely be plastic or something non-metal, so that you're not getting that kind of sun reflection on. So SPFs, there's some good products that can help with, reversing that. There's vitamin C is really good to help brighten the. There's a lot of lactic acid. You'll see a lot of they're kind of like exfoliant type night creams that have like fruit acids in them, glycolic. That's going to slowly over time take some layers of the skin away, which can help with it. Most of the time, if you have severe sun damage, you're thinking maybe chemical pills or lasers are probably the only thing that's going to really remove them completely. Some people go like hydrocodone for like the bleaching, but I just don't think it's really great for the skin or your health in general. So there are things you could do, but definitely some of those acid peels and vitamin C on a daily basis will help with that. One of my favorite brands that I love for mature skin is SkinCeuticals. It's something that I've used many times on my channels. They have a hero product called CE Ferulic and has vitamin C, E, and ferulic acid. And I use it on myself, and it's something you put on in the morning. You can then layer your sun protection on top and then, do the rest of your skincare. And it's really beautiful. It definitely works well for mature skin. Jones Road Beauty. If you don't know Jones Road is Bobbi Brown, who started Bobbi Brown Cosmetics. She, sold Bobbi Brown, and so she's now created Jones Road. Jones Road has, I'll mention them a few times with some of the categories I'm going to go through, but Jones Road is so popular because she caters towards this age group. She understands, being of that age as well, the concerns that your skin needs. So Jones Road Beauty has a lot of, she has these, they name everything like the something, like the moisturizer. So she has some really great ones. I actually like the light versions, like the light moisturizer and all that, because I find they're not as heavy, and so they work really well. And then if you're looking, some of these can be more expensive with skincare. Number 7 is a great one. Here in the UK, they sell it at Boots. I think in the US, it's in Walgreens, one of the drugstores there. And number 7 has these recovery creams. I started using. I remember it was maybe 2 years ago. I started using them. They came out. They got a lot of hype, And they have a day cream with like SPF 40 in it, and then they have the night cream as well. And I swear I use this, and the night cream especially, and I use it, my skin looks incredible the next day. Just like it's one of these things that it's not super expensive. I think it may be it's like 20 pounds, 30 something dollars. It's not super expensive compared to, some of the other brands. Like SkinCeuticals can be quite pricey, and it works. So that's definitely one that I recommend. For primers, primers are still something you need to use. It depends on what type of texture you have, because with mature skin, you can either have very dry texture, which means that you need hydrating primers. So if you're doing the right skincare, you're keeping up with it, then hopefully you are combating the dryness. But I like the illuminating primers on mature skin. Now, not everybody who's in this category necessarily needs super hydrations. The other category I think of primers that works for mature skin are more like smoothing, blurring ones. That if you notice that you have a lot of open pores, wrinkles, fine lines, and things, then you probably want to opt for that. But for illuminating, I really like the Shiseido, the Synchro Skin illuminating primer is stunning. It just looks so beautiful under your foundation. Armani Luminous Silk has like a hydrating primer that you can use as well that looks really beautiful. And then for blurring, there's a few that work really well. Like It Cosmetics has a really great one. I know that Huda has this blurring primer. And even Max Factor has some really great primers that you can use that are going to really help with like the Facefinity ones for texture. Now for foundations, this is where you have to really think about, are you going to use something really light like a tinted moisturizer or BB cream? If that is something that you like and you prefer as you get older, there's the ones that I really like is the NARS Pure Radiant Tinted Moisturizer. The color range is really great, and it has like vitamin C and SPF built in, and it just looks really beautiful. I also like the Armani Luminous Silk if you want just a little bit more coverage. And I know it's an old school foundation. People either love it or hate it. I still love it because it gives me this texture that is so gorgeous if you want glow. And the color range isn't huge, but it's one of the first like OG, glowy foundations that's been around forever. And then By Terry. So if you're not familiar with By Terry, Terry is a makeup artist who used to work with YSL Beauty. She, was the one that helped formulate Touche Éclat, the brightener that you use under your eyes. She uses hyaluronic acid in a way that other brands aren't using. So she uses it within like setting sprays and powders, but she has this Hydra foundation that's like a serum, and you do a little dropper bottle, and the finish is gorgeous. It keeps the skin hydrated all day, and it looks so good on mature skin. Now, if you want something like BB CC cream, It Cosmetics has some CC creams that I really love that I use often. So that's another one you can use if you want something lighter with little skincare benefits. Now, concealers. This is the one I think a lot of people that are of this age struggle with, because concealer can just look so cakey. It can move. It's, when we're talking about underneath the eyes, it's so hard to control it and to keep it from moving. And I'm going to talk about some of my favorite hacks at the end of this episode, which will help with that. But when it comes to concealers, you want to go a little bit lighter. One of my hacks I'll mention now that I like to do is find your favorite concealer that you love and mix it into your eye cream. So do like 50-50, and you will get just such a lighter application. It's going to sit much nicer, and it's going to keep the under eyes hydrated and not look dry or cakey at all. But the ones that I think work really well, if you want something super light, Trini London has this one called BFFI, and it's a serum-based concealer. It's like a serum-based concealer, and it has an applicator on the end that's like a metal applicator that you can just kind of, like almost like one of those cooling under eye things, tools that you would use. And the finish is just so perfect. It's another great brand if you like, formulations that are, especially skincare that's formulated for mature skin. It's really beautiful. Victoria Beckham Beauty has these concealer pens she did in collaboration with Augustinus Bader, which has so much technology built in. The science behind it you have to read is really great, and you can use these all over the face, including under the eyes. And it's like a little clip pen. So those are really great concealers that you can use on mature skin. Now, powder is one of these things that when I do these type of tutorials on people of this age group, they don't want to use powder. They're so scared of it because they think it's just going to, put a magnifying glass on top of all of their wrinkles and lines. But powders, I think, are still important because if you're talking about longevity and not moving, you do need to set them. Um, the powders that I really like tend to be more of like the hydrating powders and glowy powders. So the ones, for example, is Armani Luminous makes a powder, which I've done a few tutorials using, especially for the under eyes. It has a little bit of shimmer and it doesn't look dry at all on the skin. Swede Beauty, it's a Swedish company called Swede, and they have this one called the Magic Powder, and it just, you put it on, it just gives you like glow and shimmer and highlight, and it's definitely a great one if you want to set your foundation, but you don't want to look, like it's going to pull shine away, if you like that glow. And then By Terry again, By Terry has this hydra powder that has hyaluronic acid built into the actual powder. So you put it on and it adds hydration even though it's a powder. So it's a really great one for, it's like a translucent color so anyone could use it. I've used it even on deep skin and it works. So that's a good one to use if you're worried about powders being too drying. Then for eyeliners, remember when I mentioned at the beginning of the episode about how you have to change and adapt to your new face? And eyeliners are different because, when you have, like your eyes have, like you pull, people would pull their eye and do their liquid liner and let go and it'd be fabulous. And, it doesn't work after probably like 25. And you notice it looks all jagged because the skin is obviously not as taut. So you want to switch to formulations that glide on easier, that are smoother, but then last. So Victoria Beckham Beauty has one that's like award-winning. It's the San Kajal eyeliners. They're super creamy. The colors are epic, and they blend so beautifully, and then they set. So that's a really great one. I also like the Valentino liners. Some of the colors are just, I can't find in especially like the green, and I think they have a pink one that you just can't find in other brands. And then NARS, is so good at eyeliners. They have the high pigment longwear ones. They have liquid, like the Climax ones. I like the high pigment longwear on mature, especially shades like Mambo and Last Frontier. They're kind of more brown or warm brown. They look really great. And the other reason I like going towards more like a pencil type eyeliner as people age is that I think it always looks a little bit nicer to smoke it out a bit. So, even if you're tight lining the lash line and you just go in between the lashes and then just smudge it slightly, it just looks softer, which these are the ways that you can then adapt. So it doesn't mean you can't use black, doesn't mean you can't bring it under the eye, but find different ways of applying it. Keep it closer to the lash line. Maybe smoke it out or blend out so it's not a harsh line. It's not going to accentuate any of the looseness that you get when your eyes get older, like hooded eyes and saggy lids. And then I didn't actually write mascara down, but that's important because mascara, I think, is something that as you get older, especially if your eyes are more hooded or even deep set, if the mascara falls, you're going to see it. It's going to go all underneath your eye. It's going to transfer much easier. So this is where I opt for more tubing mascaras. So if you haven't tried a tubing mascara, they tend to sit on the lash. They coat it. They can make them look longer, lift, whatever you want to do. And at the end of the day, you can just use some warm water and then wiggle in between the lashes and the tubes will come off. So these are really great because they don't flake and they don't get that transfer that you get from even waterproof mascaras. I like the one from KBD Beauty. She has a full sleeve. I think all of the, L'Oreal and what's the other one? Like a lot of like the Maybelline, like a lot of those brands or drugstores high street, they tend to make a version of a tubing mascara, which you can find. Then blush. I think blush as you get older, cream blushes and liquids and these easier to blend formulas tend to work better because a powder can sometimes sit on top of the skin and you don't have this taut area like you did. You can have folds, you could have wrinkles, you could have the loose skin in these areas, dryness. And so that's why I think these formulations work better for mature women. So what I think for blush, I love the Say, it's called Say, Saie. They do this really hot, like glowy liquid blush that trends a lot. It's really beautiful. Jones Road does their, their Miracle Balm, and all these colors. People, there's some controversy with it, if people love it or hate it. It's definitely very, like, I don't say oily. It's like super hydrating, has a lot of slip to it. It's great for someone who has dry skin. If you have combo to oily, it's probably a little too hydrating. But some of her colors are just, like, she's so good at color. I've even seen where, we've done meetings with her, and she always has this like board behind her with, like, textures and color choices, and she knows color really well. So, she's picked the best ones for that. And then I think for blushes, really kind of finding the shades that work for you. I find mixing like a cream bronzer with the blush on mature skin works so well because it softens it, it warms up the skin. And really finding the colors, I think, like if you had a blush you loved and it had so much shimmer in it, maybe it's about going more towards a matte formulation. So even if you're using a cream or a liquid blush, you can still go matte. It just doesn't have the shimmer. And that sometimes is maybe the option you need to do to prevent bringing out texture on the skin. And then lipsticks. I think lipsticks is something that, like the matte liquid lips don't really work on mature skin, mature women, because I think it can make the lips look a little too dry. So obviously going more towards hydrating formulas, satin finishes work really nicely. There's so many options with lips, but I think it's really about, finding colors that really complement your makeup, maybe going to a brighter shade. Like if you wore more fleshy nudes when you were younger, as you get older, you need to bring a little bit more color into the face. And so, especially if you're not using it on the rest of your makeup, having a pop of color on the lips, doing a red lip, doing pinks, purples, violets, anything that is going to add a little bit of character to your makeup. This is the best place to put it as you get older because it works. And maybe you need to use more of a lip line as you get older because you need to fill in the lip and, create a little bit of depth, or to prevent it from smudging. But go for the brighter colors. If you're scared to apply it on your eyes or your cheeks, definitely try it on your lips. So for hacks, I get known for doing hacks. And I think for me, hacks are something that I like to do because I like to show pro artistry, but then how you do it at home and you can do it on yourself. So some of the ones that I think for me, I was just going through my socials and really seeing what performed really well and what people responded to. The one that I think was my number one was using the Q-tip cotton bud to remove. So if you haven't seen this, you can check out my pages. But what I like to do is apply the concealer, the foundation, the way you normally would. Don't, get the coverage you need. Don't layer it on too much, but get the coverage you need. Then, really scrunch your face, move your face around, lift your brows, smile, all these things so you can see where it's settling. And the reason why it's settling in those areas is think about it as valleys and hills. And what ends up happening is all that product is going to go into the valleys and it sits there and then you see it collecting and it creases. So by doing this, you notice where it's creasing. So then take your combo Q-tip and take out the excess from these lines, from these valleys, and then use your finger and tap over it. And then you can set it with powder, just blend it out. But this is literally the number one way, especially if I'm on set and I notice that I'm doing an application and starting to crease. This is how I get it to last. And it works. I've done this on friends, gone out to lunch later, spent the whole afternoon with them. And I just kept staring at them like, why are you staring at me? Like, I want to see if it, if it's moving. And it didn't. So it definitely works. That's a great hack, especially on mature skin. The other is if you, even after I've told you about the powders I love and they do work for you, try using a setting spray instead of a powder. So not a hydrating. There's hydrating set like mists and things. You want something that's more long wear, like the Urban Decay All Nighter, anything that has some alcohol in it or something that's going to make it last longer. You can use this to prep the skin. You can also use it at the end of your makeup instead of powder to prevent it from budging. And then sandwiching your skincare. So this is a really great tip. So imagine you put on your moisturizer and then, you do all your steps, and your primer and, SPF, all these things. Then what I like to do is apply the foundation or the concealer and then sandwich another layer of moisturizer over it. So, blend it into your hands and then press and tap it in so you're not moving the makeup. And this keeps the skin just super hydrated. It's better than using like a dewy setting spray. And this is going to really help keep your skin really glowy and young looking. And then another one I actually started posting recently about is when you're doing your lipstick, we're all taught, especially with a red lip, like take it to the corners, connect it. The problem as you get older is it just starts, young people have this like line on either side of their lips, where the lips end, and it just looks more youthful. So what I like to do is after applying, you can, not take the color all the way to the corner, but I like to take a little bit of cream concealer and just cut the angle off, just like the corner off at an angle. And it just gives a bit of lift to the lips, and it could take years off of you, and it looks really beautiful. And then the last hack or tip that I want to give for mature skin is blush, because I see a lot of videos nowadays where they're saying, oh, bring everything higher. So higher contour, higher blush. Yes, this works. It definitely will help, give lift to the face. The issue is as we get older, you lose that kind of fullness in your cheeks. The, like the collagen and the fat, pads get taken away, and you have more gauntness through the center of the face. And what you want to do is by applying all of the blush and contour, everything super high, yeah, you're getting that lift, but it's also making you look too, drawn, and you don't have any fullness to the face. So some people, especially as you get older, the best place is the apples of the cheeks, because if you're someone who has really lost a lot of volume in this area, by applying the blush to the apples, especially like a cream or a liquid one, it's going to bring that life back into the face. It's going to create a little bit more fullness. So I think as you get older, it's really finding about where do you want to apply the blush that you think maybe it's, you're missing some of that youthful glow from. So yes, lifting it higher, but maybe it's about, the apples of the cheeks. Maybe it's, maybe reshaping the face because things have pulled down. You have to maybe make like a rounded contour instead of straight. So really the best advice I give is look at your individual face and figure out what's the best placement for you. Try a few, look in the mirror, try it, take a photograph with your phone, and then see where you think it looks the best in photos. And that's the one that's best for you. Don't always follow rules because someone said this is the only way to do it. Great. So that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for listening and watching. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and I will see you next time.